In this video, I'll be showing you how to make this simple BUBU dress with patch pockets. As a beginner, if you are looking for a sewing project that you can start with, this is right for you. This is so quick and easy to make. If you are new here, you're especially welcome. My name is Bumi, and here I teach you how to sew your dream wardrobe from the comfort of your home. So if this is something you're interested in, subscribe to the channel and turn on your post notification bell so that you're notified when I post a new video. Let's get right into it. So for this tutorial, you will need your bias tape, which we'll be using to finish our neckline. And then you need a plain fabric. What I have here is crepe material, so I advise that you use a thick crepe material for this style. I have 2 yards of crepe here, which is more than enough. All right, for a small sized or average sized person, 1.5 yards of crepe is enough, and if you are on the big side, 2 yards of crepe is okay for you. Also, I'll be using this African print, also called Ankara, for the pocket and for the sleeve. I'll go ahead to fold my fabric into 2, and then I'll go on to fold it again. All right, just as you see me do. So that means I folded my fabric into 4 because I want to cut both the front and the back together. So I'm just going ahead to arrange it so that they are all equal, and then I would give it a good press. Remember that ironing is very important in sewing. So I'll go ahead to draw my starting line, which will also serve as my shoulder line. And then I'll go on to measure the width of my neck. So pay attention to where I'm taking my measurement from. I'm taking my measurement from the folded end. So for this style, I'll be using 4 inches for the width of my neck. If you are a plus size, you should go ahead and use 5 inches. Remember that this dress doesn't have a zipper, so you have to consider that when you are marking your neck measurement. So for my back neck depth, I'll be using 2 inches, and then for my front neck depth, I'll be using 4.5 inches. So if you're on the bigger side, you can go ahead to use 5.5 inches for your front neck depth. So I'll go ahead to place my pattern master, and then I'll join the points together just as you see me do. So once I'm done with the neckline, I'll go on to mark my shoulder measurement. So my shoulder is 14 divided by 2, that is 7 inches. So I'll go ahead to mark 7 inches. So remember, it's a cut together sleeve, so you have to determine how long you want the sleeve to be. Don't forget that we're going to add Ankara later. All right, so for me, I want mine to be 7.5, but I'll be marking 8 inches because I'll be using ½ inch as my sewing allowance. So at the point where I marked my 8 inches, I'll go ahead to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant. Remember that our shoulder is not straight. So I'll go ahead to join the points to my neckline just as you see me do. So the next thing to do now is to mark out our armhole depth. So you take your armhole depth after your shoulder slant. All right. So for me, I'll be using 9 inches for my armhole depth. If you're on the big side, you should use 11 inches. Alright, so I'll be using 9 inches for my armhole depth, but I'll be adding 1 inch for my sewing allowance. So I'll be marking 10 inches. On the bigger side, you can use 11 inches for your armhole depth, and then you mark 1 inch for your sewing allowance. So you'll be marking 12 inches. So now I'll also go ahead to mark the length of my dress. So I want the length of my dress to be 40 inches. So I'm so sorry, this is out of my camera focus. So all I did was to mark 40 inches for my length, and then I added 1.5 inches for my hemming allowance. So I have altogether 41.5 inches for my length. Alright, so I'll go ahead to mark my hip circumference divided by 4. So for me, that is 9.5 inches. At this point, you have to determine how big you want your BUBU dress to be. So for me, I'll be using ease allowance of 3 inches. So that's why I'm marking 12.5 inch. Then I'll also mark 1 inch for my sewing allowance. So I'm marking 13.5 inches. So I'll go ahead to mark 13.5 inches all the way down. And then I'll join the points together, just as you see me do. Now I'll go ahead to make a curve. Alright, because that area should not be sharp, so go ahead to make a curve. So I'm adding ½ inch to the shoulder area for my sewing allowance, and then I'll go ahead to connect the points together and then let's cut it out. So my sewing loves, if you have gotten to this point, please support the channel by giving this video a thumbs up. Please leave a comment for me. I want your feedback on this video. You know I'm a feedback girly. And also help share this video. Thank you. So when you get to the curve, go ahead to cut your curve right, and then make sure you cut this armhole depth area. Make sure it is straight. So I'm just trying to confirm that what I have up there is what I have at that point, so that I can cut it. So make sure it is straight, just as you see me do, and then go on to cut your shoulder and then your back neckline. So once you cut your back neckline, go ahead to take out the back and then cut your front neckline. All right, so fold it, arrange it back in place, and then go ahead to cut your front neckline, just as you see me do. So now place your front and your back piece right side facing each other, and then arrange it properly, and then go on to sew the shoulder by 1/2 inch allowance. All right, so I'm done joining my shoulder together. So the next thing to do now is to go ahead to finish my neckline with the bias tape. I already have a detailed video on how to finish your neckline with a bias and other type of neckline finishing, so you can click on the link up there to watch the video. So I'll place my bias tape right side facing the right side of the fabric. I'll pin it down and then I'll head over to my sewing machine. So I'm done finishing my neckline with the bias tape, and I'll go on to measure what I have in the armhole depth area. So I have 20 inches. I've gone ahead to cut out my Ankara fabric, and as you can see, it is on fold. So the width of what I have is 22 inches. Remember what I measured was 20 inches, so I added 2 inches allowance, so that's why I have 22 inches. It's better for the material to be in excess than for it to be small. So once I attach it to my armhole depth, I will cut out the excess. So the length is 10.5. I'll be using 1/2 inch for sewing allowance, so at the end of the day I would have 10 inches. So this is depending on you, on how long you want the sleeves to be. Okay, so I've gone ahead to notch the center of my Ankara material. Then I'll place the notch part on the shoulder line, and then I'll pin it down and go on to sew straight by 1/2 inch all through, and then I'll give it a good press. Then after which I'll cut off any excess I have on the sides. Alright, so I'm done and I've given it a good press. Remember to iron as you sew, and I've gone ahead to cut off the excess. You can see that it flows at the edge because I've cut off the excess. So this is how yours should be when you are done. So let's work on the pockets. So I've gone ahead to cut this 2 fabric that I'll be using for my pockets, and the width of the fabric is 9 inches. Alright, so you need to determine the size you want to work with, but for me I'll be using 9 inches for my width, and I'll be using 11 inches for the length of my pocket. So what I'll do now is to go ahead and fold in 1.5 inches of fabric. Alright, so I'll measure it to confirm that it's 1.5 inches. Then I'll go on to fold 1/2 inch again. Alright, so watch me closely. I'll go ahead to fold 1/2 inch again from that 1.5 inches I folded before. I'll go ahead to fold 1/2 inch just as you see me do. I'll take it to my ironing table and then I would iron it down. So after doing that, I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'll go ahead to sew it down by 1/2 inch on both sides. So I'm done sewing it down and I'll go ahead to turn it. So I'm turning it out now, and I'll use something sharp so that I can bring out the pointy edges. So once I'm done with this, I'll then go on to fold all the sides by 1/2 inch, just as you see me do. I'll fold all the sides by 1/2 inch. So I'll take this to my ironing table and I would iron it in place. I'll do this for the 2 pockets. So I'm done and this is what we have. So now let's attach this to our shift dress. Okay, so for my shoulder, I'll go ahead to mark where I want my pockets to start from, and for me I'll be using 17 inches. My waistline is 16 inches, so I just came down by 1 inch, so I'm using 17 inches for where I want my pockets to start. So I'll go ahead to mark it on both sides. So I'll also go ahead to determine from the center where I also want my pocket to start. So I'll be using 3 inches for mine. So I'll just measure 3 inches from the center front. I'll mark that position and I'll place my pocket there. I'll do the same for the other side and I'll pin it down so that it doesn't move. So you have to take your time when you are doing this part so that your pockets will be laid out straight. Alright, so take your time when you are doing this. So now I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'll go ahead to sew very close to the edge all round. Okay, so now I'm done attaching both pockets to my beautiful BUBU dress, and this is what we have. Alright, so now I'll turn my fabric over to the wrong side and I'll arrange it and pin it down so that it is equal. Alright, so I'll pin it down so that it's all equal, and then I'll go ahead to mark my sewing allowance. Remember that we kept 1 inch for the sewing allowance. So I'll mark 1 inch all round and then I'll go on to sew it down neatly. I would also do the same for the other side. Okay, so we would also need to hem the dress. Remember that I kept 1.5 inches for the hemming. So let me show you how I hem my dress. So I'll go ahead to fold that 1.5 inches all round and I'll press it down with my iron. Okay, just as you see me do. This is the neatest and easiest way to hem your dress. So after I've done that, after I've ironed it down with my 1.5 inches, I'll then go on to fold again. From the 1.5 inches, I'll fold half of an inch in. So watch me closely so that you can see how I'm folding it in. So I'm folding half of an inch in and I'll also press it down with my iron, just as you see me do. Okay, so guys, if you have gotten to this point, type M in the comment section. Let me know my people who have gotten to this stage with me. Alright, so after you have done this all through, you can then decide to take it to your sewing machine and sew it all round at the edge. Alright, where I'm showing you, or you just attach your hemming gum in it and then hold it down with your hemming gum. So for this tutorial, I'll be using the hemming gum method. So I'll place my hemming gum in it, just as you see me do, and then I'll iron it down neatly. Which method do you prefer? Do you prefer the hemming gum method, or do you prefer to take this to your sewing machine and to stitch it down? Let me know in the comment section. So my sewing love, our BUBU dress is almost ready, and look at how neat it is. Don't forget to iron as you sew. So you can see how relaxed and neat this armhole is looking, and you can see how ruffled and unrelaxed this armhole is looking. And this is what your armhole will look like if you just sew it down the regular way. So let me show you the tips and the tricks to take your armhole from looking this way to looking more relaxed and neat like this. So go ahead to turn your BUBU dress to the wrong side, and after you have turned it to the wrong side, the area that is folding, that is not relaxed, is the curved area, is that curved area. Okay, so how do you make it relax? Go ahead to reduce the bulk of sewing allowance in that area, just as you see me do. So cut off the bulk of sewing allowance in that area, and then go ahead to notch the area carefully. All right, the armhole curve area, go ahead to place your notches carefully. Make sure you don't cut through to your stitches. So let's go ahead to turn it over to the right side so that you can see the magic. I've not even ironed it yet, and you can see that it's already looking beautiful and very relaxed. So now I'll go ahead to iron it so you can see the difference and how important ironing is. If you found this video helpful in any way, please like this video, leave a comment and share this video. If you want to know how to make a perfect neckline for all your dresses, your blouses, you can click on this link up here. See you in my next video. Bye.